Colombia. So just a big shout out to Juan for putting this together. Great questions. It's kind of, I'm out here in Las Vegas, the entertainment capital in the world. So if you're ever in Las Vegas, hit me up and you can just send me like $20,000. I'll find a good place for it. When I started out in community, is somebody going to translate or I just keep going?
We are translating in the chat. If you want, you can talk about fun, family.
Yeah, I'll just go. All right, awesome. So when I started out in 1996, one of the biggest challenge for community professionals was there was no forgot password feature, right? So people needed a password. They had to actually call and talk to someone, right? Most companies didn't have email. So we've come and one is gone. All right, and we've come a long way. So someone asked me today to talk about kind of fun, family, and community. So really, you get a lot of theory, kind of like and tips and things like that, which are interesting. But I had like what I brought to the table today was really just two different stories, so you can actually see like community, fun, family, like in the real world through like actual stories, right? So bringing today just two community members' stories. So just in my time, having to build communities from like 10,000 to several hundred thousands of members, or from one big company over at Texas Instruments from 25,000 to over 1 million. You get a lot of just tips and stuff. And people say, well, how did you get there? Just like with Derek, how did you get Startup Grind to Bevy and things like that? So really just kind of talking through two stories today, and just kind of for level setting, walking into these two stories, one of the things as community professionals, where you kind of set the stage is the community horizon in terms of what's possible with your community effort. So when you look out in this kind of virtual horizon in terms of what's possible with your community, just remember that it's okay to fail and that anything is possible, right? So you'll see a lot of different speakers and talkers saying, do this, do that. And you can, at times fall into like a status quo, but just you set that bar, you set that community horizon for what is truly possible, and just challenge the status quo at certain intervals, things like that. And kind of with these two stories that I'll kind of highlight, some of the greatest gifts, actual gifts we have as community professionals is really four things. One, and these aren't tools or money. Number one, it's listening, right? Just listening to our members, potential members, other stakeholders is a powerful tool that all of us has, right? Our ability to listen is one of our greatest gifts. Second, humility. As community professionals, right? We have to talk through so many different people at different stages of stress in their work or their personal lives. So just even with the pandemic, fuses are shorter. People can be even more kind of amped up and excited. And our humility and ability to gracefully handle situations and kind of calm things down and all that stuff is great. And then it's like every day, it's like one of the things I always say to myself is, how am I bringing people together with real value, right? So I'm constantly asking myself, how am I bringing people together, right? With real value for my community. And just kind of, I'll take walks, I'll do other things, but it's kind of like this mantra of just how am I actually helping to bring people together, right? It's so simple with the community, and you can easily get lost in building PowerPoint presentations and building out stuff. But at the end of the day, if it's not bringing people together and adding value, how long is that community going to last? What's kind of likely that community is going to get off the ground? And kind of last on the greatest guest, really quick before I go into two stories, is mindset. And so mindset is so critical as community professionals because our jobs are often very intensive. We have to wear multiple different hats, talk to just hundreds of people a day, thousands of people a day, customers, partners, staff. right? And we've got to keep up this energy like all the time. And so our mindset and our positivity is going to be reflected like all times and really help us to accomplish things. So just if you're feeling overwhelmed or stressed out, just remember to give yourself a day off, time off, things like that, just so that you're able to have like keep that mindset going. And if you start feeling yourself too negative, just remember to reset, and that could be like playing a song or doing something fun. But just that mindset, just think about that winning mindset where you can just be locked in, because oftentimes you can be doing so many things um, right or wrong, but just once you turn into and flip on that switch for your mindset, you can really accomplish anything. And so just it really adds clarity to your vision. So it's that mission, vision, purpose. When that mindset kicks in, not just I'm doing a bunch of stuff, forget that I'm doing a bunch of stuff, then it's just getting that mindset. And so for today, I had two stories that kind of just highlight how do you get these kind of big programs, right? And when we look at communities, there's really like for me almost like three different kinds, right? There's the community of practice, good, great, could be business, could be people that meet up once a month to talk Deftone music, whatever it is. And then there's community that's an actual movement, right? People are going out doing things as volunteers, not even prompted by a staff. Like community is a movement where people are out active and passionate. You see it in politics, you see it around music, arts, and other things. And it's just a high level of community that you often don't get to, right? Where it becomes an actual movement and people are like forming and parts of the community, like in their own image and doing things. And it's just an amazing thing to do. And then there's community that's a family, right? And so community as family is really hard to get to. And it's kind of like for you're at a company or working for somebody as a consultant, how are you going to get that to that community as a family where the people you meet, community members that you first get in touch with, they're going to be basically like friends for life, like people that you know as family. You're going to be in touch with them as they get married, as they have kids, as they have pets, as they travel the world. Anytime you see them, or if you're in the same town, you're always going to be connected with them, right? So kind of how do you get to those two things? And so for me, working at a big company, we just had at Texas Instruments for my first story, we have like thousands of business units and product lines, right? So we're trying to grow a community from 25,000 to like several million. How are we going to get there, right? We also don't have like a CRM. So like for me, I had to memorize every single person's name coming through the door. Jeff 1, Jeff 2, Jeff 3, Jeff Colombia, Jeff France, Jeff South Korea, like having to memorize that. So there was a lot of challenges, right? And there's just millions of customers out there. So how do we like really get people in? And so when you've got your community, set up and your customer journey, some of those things are like, how do we intercept people that we know is going to be like a great community member? And how do we do it like early on when they're in the honeymoon phase, right? So it's like, how do we tee it up so people understand there's an opportunity? And then even if they miss that, how do we capitalize on it in the honeymoon phase of being a community member? Because once they're out of that phase of being like in that honeymoon phase, it's really hard to win them back. And that's why you see with a lot of communities, there's that 30, 60, 90 day of new members signing up, joining the community and never coming back, right? So they weren't intercepted. There wasn't anything to like keep them connected with it, right? So it can be really a big challenge, especially like in larger communities like the one for Texas Instruments, where we've got like thousands of new threads going on a daily basis. I've got no CRM, I've got no real listening tools. So how am I going to basically be able to intercept people, right? And so I do have some ways to look at this data and look at it. So one day I'm in our kind of wireless area of the site where we don't have like all the support teams in place, but I see a member called Yakai Chen, like helping out other people like in rapid fashion. And so the great thing there is once you actually have a community member and retain them, this is like for getting Yakai Yakai Chen involved in the thing is you've got to have like communication areas, you've got to have programs, you've got to have groups and activities, right? So now that you've got someone that, hey, I really want to be an active community member, really engaged, what do you actually have for them to do, right? Do you have formalized tracks, right? So if somebody says, hey, I just want to blog for you guys, or hey, I want to speak for you, do you have clear programs and tracks where you can basically get them included and integrated and involved? And so it's really critical to kind of know is like once you get the people you want, do you have formalized tracks, programs, activities, and groups that you can put them into to do it? Because you're just like one person, right? So if you can plug them into all these other areas, it makes your job of dividing and conquer very easy. So I see Yakai Chen out there helping, and it just, I've seen the pattern so many times. I'm like, this person's going to be like a super user, right? Years later, Yakai Chen is like the top community member of all time at Texas Instruments, but then just doing a little bit of post, right? And so then send Yakai an email thanking them for what they're doing on the community and just say, hey, let's quickly connect really quick one-on-one. This is a virtual meeting, right? So this is way before the pandemic times. And so when I get Yakai on, the first thing I do is say, hey, I just want to listen. I just want to listen to what do you need? What are you trying to do? How can I help you? Right. And so Yakai laid out like specific things that he wanted from Texas Instruments to do. And so I just kept a list. Okay, want to do this. Wants to start connecting with the product teams. Is there a way to get like even more product knowledge, things like that? And what are the ways that I can be involved, right? So in the first one, he wanted to get more involved with the product teams, and he happened to be going to San Diego where we had an office. So I just emailed the team in San Diego, hey, we've got like a person that loves helping out other people in our community. Can you do like a deep dive, a full day of programming for product knowledge? They have so many questions, right? They're also like an amazing customer, right? And so anything we need to do there, so we got a full like red carpet day just from that being in town, connecting those dots right away. And so all I did was just listen to them. Secondly, we had a super user group to actually get them involved with, right? And with the super user group, I had essentially bi-weekly or monthly meetups, right? Some of them had like topics, right? But the theme was fun and connecting, right? So when we get on these meetups that were like every 2 weeks or every 4 weeks, Yakai Chen can connect with other users from around the world that are kind of similar to what they're doing, also a super fan of the brand. We had people in this that were singing their own songs, like Enrique Iglesias songs, like in our meetups, or singing La Bamba, singing like all different types of music. And then we also gave a chance for everybody that was a part of this to actually like say, hey, here's what's going on in my life. So they could give life updates, or they could talk about some big like achievement professionally. But we essentially just allowed everybody to have a stage where they could talk about what was going on. And so we quickly became a family. And so for Yakai Chen, he like gets in, I listen to them, gets to be connected immediately with the product team for everything that they're doing, and gets to be a part of a super user group so that we can help them out. And then just kind of ongoing, just, one other thing we also had is an award program. And so then on the award program externally, this is all good and great, but across the customer journey, it's like at certain milestones where people can kind of stop or become less motivated. It's like, what are these kind of like incentives on the journey? So a monthly award program that ladders into an annual awards program is basically like so critical for that, to keep them motivated through reward and recognition. And so for Yakai in our wireless category, he was winning that every month and just feeling like super motivated to keep doing what they're doing, in addition to the other areas where we were actually giving value to them back too, right? And then with monthly awards, it's a digital certificate that they get, a badge. We've got a whole package of recognition stuff that you put out on social, stuff you put out on the community site. But there wasn't any big budget, right? There's no like, we didn't have any budget for swag and hoodies or any of that stuff. But just the virtual side of things just meant so much to people, and getting to have like that clout and get that kind of like shared back. And so when we put the awards out, it also helped to inspire other people out there to do it. And then Yakai was also doing, we got a few like bubble tea meetups in Taiwan where they're located out. So you got to connect with other community members that he had never met in real life. When we did the first annual awards, our Taiwan team actually brought them into this big 1-day customer event. And we did this whole like show of him winning the award with the photographer like taking photos. And so that was just like for their first year, like being a community member, really got this like red carpet experience, right? And as community professionals, right, as you kind of see with the Yakai-chan story, it's like where we are intercepting people in that customer journey, we can add so much red carpet that's not about budget. It's kind of just limited to our ideas and what we can actually accomplish, right? And it's tough. Like you know, when you talk in thousands or millions, you're just thinking, how do I divide and conquer? And so for Yakai, it's like I've got the product team working with them. I've got a program where he's interacting, engaging with other people. And then for my time, as long as I'm essentially have one-on-one time with them, say like once a quarter or once every 6 months, they're getting everything that they need, right? And so that helps me to load balance across providing the same type of red carpet experience to hundreds and thousands of other members, right? And then just kind of through the years, it was like looking at opportunities for Yakai. So we had like internal conferences where we actually brought Yakai in to speak. So if you have your own like internal user conferences, or even if you don't, you can actually bring in, like if someone's already coming to learn about products, things like that, you can actually put an hour block for a community member just to get up and say, hey, this is what I love about your company. And so other staff can basically see, not just me or Jeffrey or someone else saying why community is great. You actually can have like a luncheon or a 1-hour event. You can even do it virtual now where the customers get a chance to get up. This is what I love about you. This is what I love about community. And then other people get to ask questions. Well, what about this? What about that? Right. And so it's really amazing. And a lot of times the product and other teams will say, hey, can we get like a 1-hour feedback session? Right. If Yakai is on the front lines helping people out, can he just come in and he's probably seeing like trends we're not even seeing, right? And so it's amazing for all the people. And just all these years later, it's like anytime Yakai-chan's like in town, we would go out and get some bubble tea together. I'd look for specific events, get them out to the garden, just doing like fun events and activities. So it wasn't just like 8 hours like in meeting rooms all day. So at nighttime, we were, I was programming dinners for other team members where they could get out, see other people, or if we had other customers in town, we'd go out to like gardens or other types of activities just to kind of like let your hair down. And it gave like team members a chance to network with them. So just kind of an amazing success. And kind of like when I sat next to Yakai at some of the events, he could literally help out like 10 to 20 customers in a minute. And he was doing this all from his smartphone pretty much through the duration of doing it. So it wasn't just like keyboard, like in a support model community. It was like on a smartphone. He could just like da-da-da-da-da, question 1, da-da-da-da-da, question 2. He just was like Neo from this movie, The Matrix. It's just so amazing. And at that scale, it gets so tough, right? Because somebody's like, when you get those power users, but this full red carpet experience was just great that we were able to get them, right? So listening, humility to basically be able to work with him. How do I bring him together? So connecting with product teams in very innovative, great ways, having programs, events, activities, right? Even empowering him to be connected with the Taiwan team and doing like bubble tea meetups where he is. For our customers, and just that mindset of just how do I keep this power user like super engaged, right? And it's just amazing today. It's like all these years later, just, as I mentioned, just still getting bubble tea and still like, connecting on Facebook. So as I have life events or they have life events, we're like commenting back on each other's stuff. I'm obviously no longer at the company, but it's like that's when you really have done something special, when you've kind of left that community and other places, or even got to the point, and it's just like you're just so connected with your members in a way that's just, it's nothing short of family. And one last story that I also want to speak to too, that kind of just talks about the power of community really quickly, is Leo Bosch, right? So also at Texas Instruments, Leo Bosch. So one of the things as community members, we're always looking for these like super users or like highly engaged community members that just are very engaged or really want to be active and involved, right? It makes our jobs like so much easier. And so I had a community member, Leo Bosch, out of Western Europe. And so he would just love to help out other customers. And so I was like, sending Leo an email like, hey, we've got this super user program. Love to have you involved. He's like, yeah, I don't know about all that marketing stuff. And just, it was just kind of really intense. I don't know about all that stuff and things like that. But I was like, hey, just give it a try. We've got these monthly meetups. It's completely optional. There's no requirements, right? Because some super user programs, they're like, you've got to write 10 blog posts a day, 10 YouTube videos, and all sorts of stuff. So when you look at the requirements, you're like, forget that, right? I've got like stuff I need to watch on Netflix. I've got a family. I've got a life, right? So typically with super user programs, like when I'm doing them stuff, I've got to keep the barrier to a certain level, but not enough where people are just going to run in the opposite direction. So Leo's like, oh, wait, so there's nothing, there's no like requirements, obviously is guidelines, right? We want everyone to be like professional, things like that, but there's no like, you've got to do all these blog posts, things like that. So I got Leo in the program, right? And pretty much the secret sauce was the monthly meetups we were doing, right? So Leo got to be involved. He's like, wow, you've got like people singing. We get to talk about our own lives, what we're doing, what we're working on, and how we're active on the community. We can even share best practices and tips, right? So it also allow like our community members to talk about what they are doing, how they are doing it, so other community members could also see about it too. Bringing in product teams and people like that too to also like deepen the product knowledge. But he's like, wow, I get this whole like vibrant thing just by this free program of being a super user. And so Leo's kind of like really became like in every single like meetup, he was always a presence. And he went from this like super intense person to this like kind of joking person. And just, you could just feel like a totally different Leo had happened, right? And just super engaged and just love to kind of just make people laugh and just a really lively person. And we saw like, same with the guys, like their activity, what they were doing with us was like off the charts, right? We were helping them connect with what we were doing, right? And getting like some real value from them, right? So just a full spectrum of things to keep them highly motivated and engaged. And kind of like closing up the story, what was really fascinating is there was like a period of time where we didn't hear from Leo. And then out of nowhere, I got a message from Leo's family saying that Leo had passed away from a heart attack, right? And so so it's kind of always like it's a big blow, like when you lose a community member, but also when one of these, dies. So it's like a really sad moment for us. And they're like, but Leo's passed away, just wanted to let you know, and things like that. But here's what they also said, and we kind of almost like forget as community professionals, is the impact we have on people's lives. And so they said when Leo's family said, so when Leo first started out, like on our community, things like that, they're having a really hard time getting Leo involved, like with the grandkids, right? He kind of would become like really withdrawn, right? So as a family member, sometimes you have that, right? Where you get a family member like just a little bit withdrawn. And once they became active in our community, and then especially as part of like our super user program, they saw a night and day difference in Leo. He bought like a new like web camera, a new microphone, and just like got his desk cleaned off, and just everything like kind of changed, right? So he was like, and we didn't necessarily see it from our end, but it just a total life change took place with Leo, right? And then he was inviting his grandkids over. He's an engineer, so showing them like how to do things. And so suddenly just, so for his last kind of few years of his life, just by helping to be in our super user program, just completely kickstarted his life, really became this like super engaged person with their family member again, with their grandkids. It was this profound life change. And so the family was just saying, hey, we just want to let you know that Leo passed away. And secondly, you made a real difference in his life. And because of that, you made a real difference in our lives. And you also made a real difference in our grandkids' lives. So what better way for his final years to be spent like it? So we just want to thank you, the community team, everyone at this company for just revitalizing Leo, right? And so I think that, just our ability to touch people's lives can be like super profound in ways that we can't always quantify. But just kind of for when we talk about, fun and family things like that, it's just kind of a way that that we do it. So those are the two stories I had today that kind of help to illustrate things like that. But that's all I've got for me. I'm probably like way over time, and they're like, vamos, vamos.
Thanks, Blake. We are Blake fans because always he share about tips and advice about be fun and about community builder and how we can really engage with our members. I don't know if someone have si tiene alguna pregunta, no sé si Sergio o Iván Darío o Felipe.
Hi Blake, this is Felipe. Thank you very much for your presentation. Great experience on building communities. I would like to know a bit about your experience, about the tools, or about the tools you use to communicate and engage with your community. Maybe WhatsApp, Discord, Slack. Also, what about the meetups? What about the frequency? In my case, we run meetups every week, but at some point, I don't know if maybe it's too much. So what is your experience with the frequency of the meetups and the different channels to handle the communication among your community? Thank you, Blake.
Yeah, that's a great question. And so the first thing with me before I get to the tools is I've got like a kind of an Excel template, which I'll create two things. One is like a content counter in an Excel template by month. And then I'll create like a separate one for events and activities. And so then the main thing on the events and activities, and so when we're trying to look at like frequency and like the tooling and solutions, right? And so the calendar, when I put the community calendar together for basically a year, there's a couple of things that I'm looking at is like every 3 months, I want one big like hero, like really big event, right? And so just making sure like, because without that, there has to be some big thing where we all come together as a family or all come together as a community, just to kind of our big pep rally event. So every quarter, there's got to be some big thing, right? And then the thing of it is like, wherever you sit, like in the year or calendar, it's like once you do any type of event, every day after it, right, that energy starts to kind of like wane off, right? The excitement starts to go down. And so when I look at the calendar of events, I'm like, ooh, and then I'm like, well, what should be after that event, right? And how many days after it? And then I'm like, should it be a regular event, right? So we can maintain a certain level of momentum and energy. So a lot of just like the understanding like the frequency and the programming is like, what makes sense to put on the calendar at these different, should it be like every week? And then if I'm doing an event for this week, which community members are going to be like highly motivated or engaged by it, and just making sure it's like it's going to be going to the right audience, but then at the right frequency, right? So to engage that audience, once, I see some programs, they do stuff like once every 12 months. And so way too little, or once a quarter. And so if you're only meeting with your most passionate people once a quarter, it's like you've lost so much momentum and energy. So at the bare minimum, it's like I want to at least do like a monthly meetup. Not everybody has to be there, but on the most passionate. For everybody else, it's just looking at the frequency of them getting back together in meaningful ways. And sometimes it's like, should that be every 2 weeks, 6 weeks? But I'll just kind of look at the data, right? And so if the data says like more and more people are signing up, more and more people are attending, then I've kind of got like a sweet spot for it. But if it's like going down, it's like, I've got too many, right? So maybe I don't need like 8, things like that. But that calendar that I put together just really keeps me honest, because it's like writing like a song, just the right symphony, right events, things like that, right? And then in terms of the tooling, it's kind of like for when I'm just thinking about how am I trying to bring these people together, what are the tools that we actually need? So if they're coming together to connect, what are the ways that they're doing it? What are the ways that they're already doing it, right? So if I don't have a tool, I'll do a lot of just one-on-one talk and surveying to say, hey, what tools do you like? What, if we had a community, what would you try to do? Are you interested in blogging? If we had like forums, are you interested in that? And just so that the community members are giving you like some insight in terms of what they like, right? So if Juan says, hey, I really love Doritos, when Juan comes over, I'm going to have like some chips. And granted, community members aren't going to be experts on the tool and things like that, but they can at least like, going through them and talking to them, you'll at least understand like, they're really expressing, I want to do this. And then it'll sort of be, and then you'll know like, this tool is like, this still really matches what most of my members said would work for them, right? And so just talking to them and doing surveys can give a lot of that insight into matchmaking with the right tool, because it's not like a one size fits all. And a lot of times it's better to have that insight before you buy something, and then you find out like, I hate this chord, or like that, where you kind of know like what really makes sense. And the only other thing I would say there is then for like some of your programs, so if you're doing a super user program or other types of events or breakout groups, is you need a communication hub that is just for them. So that could be a private Slack channel or a private forum, right? Where people can communicate 24/7, right? You don't want your communication with these groups to be stop and start, every time you do a webinar, right? You want to keep that momentum and excitement going, right? Where people can just come in and chat and talk all the time. And then you can also like pair that with having like a place for work, and then having a place for like off topic, right? So people can talk about other interests and hobbies that they're doing. So a lot of the solutioning is like, what are members telling me the ways they want to connect, and the types of things they really want to do, that informs me. And, the tooling I look at today is like a lot, so much is pre-built out of the box, or I'm not having organization. You've got vanilla, same company, which does great. And then the Slacks and Discords are just kind of like, almost like, for me, it's like communication hubs, but it's really for, how does this provide value? What do we get out of it? And more often than not, if I'm using something like that, I may use it more for just like a super user group or other things, if I don't have a good way to do like a private forum. So I'm just like looking, and just the frequency, all that stuff is just building out a whole like community events and calendar, one big event a year. And then every event activity that I do, turn on the lights for, it's like an event type, right? So I've kind of got a big one, and then I've got like 4, 5, 10 other ones. They're for, and then just determining like what's the frequency every month, every other month, and just being able to start measuring those, right? So I may not know like right away, but then when I look back at that at 3 months, 6 months, the data will really paint a picture for, I'm either doing it too little or maybe even cases like there's not enough time. But those are a few of the ways, and there's a lot more, but hopefully that answers it. Great.
Thank you, Blake. Thank you so much. We are Blake fans about a community builder. You have like 20 years from community for members, from work so hard about create communities from tech and other sectors. Thank you so much. We are right now with Jeffrey.
Thank you, Blake.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks everybody. You're in great hands with Juan and the team, and don't hesitate to reach out if you ever need anything or if you're ever in Las Vegas.
Oh, live in Las Vegas. Las Vegas.
Have a good one. Thank you.